This is the 1779 Rennell map of Bengal. In 1765, when the East India Company received the Diwani, the legal right to collect imperial revenues, they laid claim to a territory of immense geographic and economic scale. Under the dual government model, the company sat at the top as legal collector, entirely separated from the land. A massive layer of native intermediaries, the Naib Diwan, Amils, and Zamindars, sat in between, acting as a functional black box that severed direct sight. This paradox meant the company held a license to extract wealth, but possessed no data on its generation. Consequently, revenues fluctuated wildly, signaling a failure of the indirect model to predict income. The Diwani was a blindfolded mandate. Far from being a magical key to colonial control, it left the company at the mercy of the indigenous bureaucrats who controlled the information. A historical myth by Lord Macaulay suggests the company neglected the administration of Bengal until 1772. But the archives of Governor Harry Verelst succeeding Clive in 1767 tell a different story, showing an administration deeply concerned with internal control. By 1768, the Court of Directors in London were already demanding administrative intervention. They were astonished at the massive unrecovered balances in districts like Dinajpur and the leniency shown to local rulers. Verelst's 1769 supervisor scheme was an aggressive operation designed to bypass native intermediaries. Its goal was to seize the one asset that allowed for direct extraction, localized agricultural data. This marked the beginning of a shift in company strategy, a move toward a bureaucratic scramble to map and measure every part of the subjugated economy. Relying on indigenous tax farmers, or amils, proved destructive. Under short-term leases, these collectors engaged in a scorched earth style of extraction to meet their targets. In 1769, Richard Beecher warned Governor Verelst that the condition of the people had become worse than before the Diwani. He identified the exact cause: the exportation of specie to fund company investments, rather than importing silver to pay for goods. The company created a fatal macroeconomic loop. They extracted tax revenue in silver, used it to buy local goods, and exported them to England. Crucially, they returned no new currency. Without circulating silver, local trade liquidity vanished and markets froze. This was a sharp break from the era of Ali Verdi Khan, where moderate revenue terms had allowed local bankers to keep the agricultural economy growing. The company realized that their own extraction machine was rapidly destroying the hosted fed upon. To protect their future revenues, they had to intervene. To bypass the central native administration, Verelst deployed English supervisors directly into local districts in 1769. This official list shows their reach, from Dhaka and Hugli to Birbhum and Purnia. Their primary objective was to seize the Hustabud, the original granular revenue roll that detailed exactly who owned what land and what they owed. The company knew local zemindars maintained two separate financial realities to hide profits. They passed one falsified, minimized book to the government to lower their tax burden, while using a second, maximized book to extract every possible penny from the riot. The supervisor was ordered to bypass these falsified books entirely and compile a new Hustabud based on actual land measurements, or bigas. Verelst warned his officers that existing records were designedly disguised and loosely, unfaithfully, and partially formed to protect private interests. The supervisor functioned as an aggressive auditor, explicitly weaponized to break the native data monopoly and ruthlessly uncover all concealed wealth. Identifying Milan's actual yield addressed only one part of the systemic leakage. The company also needed to dismantle the vast network of undocumented feats. Beyond the established want, native elites piled on a crushing weight of arbitrary taxes, like the Matot and Nuzur Enna. Supervisors were ordered to track down every undocumented demand made by the zemindars and eradicate them. Verelst also targeted the judicial system, ordering the separation of revenue collection from criminal justice. He believed there was great danger and impropriety in letting one official control both. Native officials had been using judicial authority to confiscate estates and levy massive fines, keeping the wealth themselves instead of passing it to the treasury. By eliminating arbitrary taxes and separating justice from revenue, the company systematically destroyed competing extraction networks, so they alone could feast on Bengal's wealth. Verhulst cloaked these bureaucratic audits in Enlightenment rhetoric. His instructions appealed to national principles of honor, faith, rectitude, and humanity, framing the extraction as a way to protect the poor riot. But the result was a structural demolition of the existing native network. In its place, a rigid colonial grid emerged. The company was building a direct data pipeline from the agricultural base to the district officer. While the supervisors initially struggled against native resistance, Verhulst's 1769 framework permanently shifted the company's strategy toward active territorial surveillance. This concept of bureaucratic control acted as an overlay that would eventually blanket the entire subcontinent under future governors like Warren Hastings and Lord Cornwallis. The East India Company's transition from a merchant syndicate to an imperial sovereign was ultimately forged by the relentless, invasive power of the ledger and the surveyor's chain.